Welcome to the Normalizing Average podcast. Join us as we dive into the stories behind the people who have overcome setbacks to achieve success, celebrating the average moments on the path to extraordinary results. Let's go. Okay. Hey, Amy.
Hey, Eve. Nice to see you.
You too. This is
Episode one.
Episode one. Yeah. Of Normalizing Average, our new podcast.
Yeah.
And shall we kick things off?
Yeah, we should. We
should.
Okay.
So we've done our teaser, kind of talked about what we're trying to achieve here, trying to talk to leaders, people who have achieved mastery, accomplished great things, and discuss what their story is, as well as what moments they've really either struggled through or maybe something that's relatable to us, what they've had to push through, what demons they've had to fight, maybe what darkness they've had to get through. And that's what we're going to talk about. We figured, we might as well start with us. We kind of have to.
Test subjects.
Yeah, as the test subjects and see how that goes. So why don't we kick things off?
Okay.
Amy.
Yeah. Hit me.
What's your story? What's your story?
I just want to thank everybody for being here and like just the support and the interest so far. It's just been pretty, it's been pretty amazing. It's great.
Yeah, such good feedback.
It is. It's pretty exciting. So some of you know my story, but I'll share it with those that don't. I am a RMT and life coach. I've been an RMT for over 10 years and also living in Revelstoke for about that same time. I moved here after I graduated. Life coach for a little bit less than that, just in the last couple of years, kind of getting into it. And it seems like the natural progression, getting into life coaching, supporting individuals, it's not within the scope of practice of RMT, but it's such a big part of being there for individuals and showing that just like non-judgmental space holding, I have sort of transitioned into a home-based practice at the moment. I was working at a clinic for about 6 years before this, and sort of just kind of hopped around working at heli ski lodges and a spa clinic, just kind of getting my feelers into what would be sort of work best for me. And it just kind of is a progression of my growth as well, and just listening to what's best for me. So I'm pretty grateful for where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And then transitioning into coaching as well. What sparked that?
Good question. I think it's just like a big part of what I love about humans is like the journey of it, and like the messy parts and the emotions, and with massage, it's like I mentioned, it's not within my scope, but it's just like I find that when I see people healing, when they have emotional support as well, the healing journey from an injury is just like that much smoother. And so it's just seeing that I'm like, okay, there's like the whole approach needs to be looked at. And
it's very, just thinking about it and tying those two things together, it's very holistic.
Yeah.
Very well-rounded. Is there, and this is now just, is there like a world where you could do some sort of massage, life coaching kind of practice?
Yeah.
I think it's like body and mind. Like, is that completely out there, or?
Yeah, no, it's not. I think there's already like clinics and practitioners that are doing it. I know that for a fact. But within my designation of an RMT, it's not allowed. But if I were to step away from that and just like create like unregulated profession, I could do whatever. I mean, I could do whatever within reason.
Yeah. So, do what I want.
I do what I want. But that, if that answers your question.
I do have another follow-up question about the coaching is, what kind of things did you learn in that were either breakthroughs for you or even just reaffirm things you already know? What were your biggest takeaways?
Like self-compassion is just like really lacking and maybe that's just like was in my world at the time, but I just am noticing how much like just giving yourself a little bit of credit just goes so far. And it's just like, it's such a good reminder. And that has been my theme of this year is adventure and self-compassion. And it's just like takes the edge off of it, and you just take yourself a little bit less seriously. And then you're able to like just get through a situation without that judgment. And you're able to move through it a bit quicker.
Is
Yeah.
it because, do you think there's a lot of, or just so much self-judgment out
Yeah.
there?
There's so much
As well as
self-judgment.
judging each other, but it's like
Yeah.
probably judge ourselves the most.
Yeah. And pressure from society and like goals, like hashtag goals, whatever, like everyone just take a nap, take a deep breath. Up. Like that is the motto of this year for
Yeah.
me.
I was on a call today, and my
Yeah.
advice to the group was, if you need to take a nap, take a nap. Like,
Dude, it's like
20 minutes at 3 o'clock in the
yeah,
afternoon. Don't beat yourself up. Yeah.
100%. Nap supporter.
Yeah. Big
Yeah.
nap supporter.
Yeah.
So tell us then, do you want to get into some of the challenges or some of the
Yeah.
like the peaks and valleys?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to share is this also just um building a career, but also managing your personal life. When I look back, 10 years ago, even 8 years ago, when I was kind of starting out, I was going through the loss of my dad as well. And the the journey that I was going through with my family, and also the grief that I was feeling, and just like the newness of that whole experience, while also developing a career in a community that I was planning on staying at for a very long time, was like very interesting. And I haven't really like reflected on it too much until we knew that these questions are going to be asked,
Yeah.
so it's just like, it's nice to spend some time and just like also once again give myself some credit for that, the pain points of that, and also just coming out on the other end. And yeah, I just how much I've grown from that experience, and I'm proud of myself for the strength, but also the weakness that I went through, and just like crumbled, and my friends and family were there, and just like it was messy, as I've said before, but it you just like yeah, I didn't even think about like I'm building my career. It's just like, no, I got appointments available. Do you want to come get a massage?
Yeah.
But now in the back, like you look back and you're like, no, it actually was building my career.
Oh yeah.
So it just also, yeah, just the challenge between that,
How did you balance those things? How did you
Yeah.
balance the days where you would have, I would imagine, grief completely
Yeah.
take over, with being in a service-based business, like seeing being client facing?
Yeah. I think I did a lot of crying outside of massage.
Yeah.
Just like make sure you get all your tears out. So then like then you're just can stay focused on the job, because it's like people can feel what a therapist, you walk into a room and you can just feel it. And so I know a lot of my clients had known what was happening at the time too. And I appreciate their like patience and understanding during that time as well. And I just think that like asking for support, and like also not hiding it, just being able to share the experience, and people want to be there for you when it's tough, and they want to be there to celebrate the good. And so not taking away from them being able to be there for you, and just sharing, yeah, the highs and lows.
Can I ask a possibly personal question, but as somebody who I haven't dealt with grief that close,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of people either have or they haven't, but
Yeah.
for those of us who have not, who
Yeah.
also want to be there for people who have,
Yeah.
what
Hmm.
were the things that helped you through that, from
Yeah.
your, whether it was maybe from yourself, but what helped you also from others or from your
Yeah.
friends and community?
I think just like zero judgment on like how I was reacting at the time, and also just allowing me to have the emotions, and also and just like listening, and like a hug, man, a hug goes a long way. And I just read recently asking like, do you want to vent right now, or do you want some advice? And like how powerful that is, and I just think that people, they all support in different ways, and that's valuable as well. And even just you asking, that is just so powerful, shows your empathy, and just because you haven't lost anybody doesn't mean that you don't know grief, and it doesn't mean that you haven't been through your share of hard times. So what loss feels like, right? So yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah. What,
Mhm.
and then again, a follow-up question
Yeah.
to that is a kind of a piggyback question is, was there anything that wasn't helpful?
Mhm.
What made that coping and just dealing, what made that harder,
Yeah.
if anything? Like, I
Um,
know you
yeah.
probably have more, like emotional toolkit than
Yeah.
some people, like to be able to share, to be able to not judge yourself, where some people might not have that. But what
Yeah.
was not helpful for you?
Um, well, I know what's not helpful now is like looking back, hindsight, and being like, I wish I could have done this like differently.
Yeah.
That's painful. Just like you can't take today's information and lessons that you've learned along the way and then compare it to what you had at that time. And it's just like I'm still having to remind myself about that.
Yeah.
And that just goes in every aspect of our lives, you know. Yeah.
Okay. So that's big. So that's triggering something for me that is, that a coach said recently, that there are no bad decisions
Yeah.
at all. They don't
Yeah.
exist because,
100%. I agree with that.
yeah, nobody's choosing. He related to, it's like nobody's choosing the pot of
Yep.
crap, like pile of shit, over the pot of gold. So you're just making the best decision that you can with the
Mhm.
information that you have. It's
Yeah.
not a bad decision, and there's no mistakes. There's just outcomes which you did not intend,
Yeah.
unintended outcomes. They're like, okay, I made a mistake, but at the end of the day, I wasn't trying to make a mistake. I wasn't
Yeah.
trying to crash my car. I wasn't
Yeah.
trying to upset somebody. We're all doing our best,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
And it's so yeah, whatever decision you make is the right one is another way to put it. Just because I know a lot of people can be paralyzed by that.
Yeah.
And
Why did I do that? Like beating
oh,
yourself up, feeling guilty, feeling shame.
yeah,
Hmm.
but all those emotions are just really rough, really hard. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
How, if you don't mind me asking, how long ago was that?
Yeah, my dad passed away about 7 years ago. He was diagnosed with dementia and then ALS. It was about it was something else.
Yeah.
It was an 8 to 10 year journey that he was diagnosed. So just even just watching my mom as a caretaker and then my brother with his grief, it's just all painful. But like we're a tight family and we just cherish the memories and celebrate him on his birthday and have the rum and coke and the pizza and I just like I celebrate him every day because I just feel him all the time, and I just feel him everywhere, and like the hobbies that I have and the less like the what I know as a human and what I'm interested in, like yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to feel that closeness with somebody that's passed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
They're not like,
It-
yeah, as if they're not totally gone.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
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 And you're
So
crushing
yeah.
it.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty exciting. Not
Yeah.
exciting, but like just where your
The
career is now, and then after going through that.
yeah, and that celebration can happen and that joy and love and it's yeah, that is exciting.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would then give to anybody advice that might be going through something similar?
Mhm.
I guess aside from I really do like that takeaway that don't judge yourself on
Yeah.
past decisions, but yeah, anything that helped you get through that would help somebody right now that you can think of.
Yeah, like just don't apologize for what you
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
Like just listen to what you need. If you need to like I found that when people were talking to me, I would just be like not, I even told him, I'm like, if I look glazed over and I don't respond, it's because I am like thinking about something else, or like I'm just processing stuff. And I just being honest, and yeah, I'm like, sorry, I can't have this conversation right now. I'm like, this is, yeah, or just, yeah, bottom line, ask for what you need, do what you need. And that's my advice. I know it's hard, but it's almost gets less hard when you're in grief, because you almost don't have that the energy to care. And
Yeah.
so there's almost like this beauty with that, because you're like, I don't give a fuck right now, and I care, I give a lot of fucks all the time. And so
Yeah.
to take a break from that, it was actually quite a holiday in
Yeah.
a really strange way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah. A
yeah,
bizarre, dark, freeing
yeah, holiday.
experience to just be and just to feel and be exactly who you are.
And that potential yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, exactly.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Getting into it.
Thanks, Amy.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks,
Doing
Eve.
that. I
Thank
know
you.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we yeah, potentially I'll ask you questions, but I do want to give a little another teaser, because we love teasers around here. But we are gonna, we're gonna share the most average thing about us. So I was gonna save that to the end and we can both share.
Yeah. And
But
I think that'll be a good way to end every show.
yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too. I think it
Yeah.
could be just like our new niche like sentence, and we can eventually get it on like hats and t-shirts.
Yep.
Bumper stickers.
Yeah, so there's future guests listening. Just think
Yeah.
about your most average moment.
Letterbox. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, Eve, I'll ask you, tell me about your story that got you this far. And
Yeah.
a big question.
Yeah, it's funny because when we were prepping for the show, we wrote our questions. We're like,
Yeah.
we're going to talk to people about their dark moments and the things
Yeah.
that they really struggled with. And then when I realized that we would probably have to share ours, I had a
Yeah.
little bit of a panic. Like, oh, we also can't really ask people to do something that we're not willing to
Yeah.
do ourselves, or at least. And I'm generally very transparent with my shortcomings, but
Yeah.
okay. So here we go.
Really funny. I mean, I love it. It's just, it's
A lot
like
of
so
fluff.
endearing.
So we have, all right, story is the quick and dirty Eve Duke story is I ran two businesses. One was a snowboard company, it was called Women's Snowboard Federation. I ran that for about 10 years, 10 plus years. And that started in Ontario when I was in college. And I ended up transitioning that, selling it to Canada Snowboard, which is our national sports organization. And we were all girls park specific events company. So we would run, like, we call it Roxy Ride Days, and we would also work as judges. So we would judge Billabong Flaunted and just all girls events, and we'd volunteer and work at other girls events and ran our own. And at its peak, I was running schools, camps basically, but like ongoing camps, 6 to 8 weeks for 5 nights of the week, or 2 full days and 3 nights, which was a lot. So, and it was all over Ontario at the time. So, if you know Ontario, it's like the land of a 1,000 tiny ski hills, and so I'd kind of go to all different ski hill, kind of at a different part of the province every night of the week, and I'd have coaches there and a coaching team there that would meet me, and we'd run these girls camps and events, and we'd work for other brands and do really cool stuff. So I love that. I ran that for, yeah, again, kind of that was my intro into business, and obviously made tons of mistakes there, but learned a lot. And then, yeah, it was great to transition it to Canada Snowboard, and they're still running it today. They've rebranded it as a company called as Elboard, and it's there. They still run girls programming, which is awesome. And yeah, another great thing was because we were always partnered with them as our national sports organization, but with that we could also grow we had camps all across Canada. And so we had a sister camp in Yukon, the Prairies, the Maritimes, and then we ran our own camps in Quebec and BC, Ontario, and Alberta, which was so great. So we managed to get kind of like fully properly coast to coast and all the way up to the Yukon with Women's Snowboard Federation and our, we call it Park Days camps, and get so many women into the sport, which was really fantastic. I loved it until you do, and then why of course would you sell that and, and transition out? And yeah, the biggest reason was I found that my actual snowboarding, we'd moved to Revelstoke, and I'd opened up a camp in Lake Louise, and things were humming away there. We had a team running our camps there, and I just found that, yeah, my snowboarding had actually just started to take a hit because I'd been teaching girls at a beginner intermediate level for so long, and running events, and you're on the hill, but you're not, it's quantity as opposed to quality. And so you kind of take the thing that you love and then you turn it into something that's now a job. And that's exactly what I did. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to really enjoy Revelstoke, which seems completely ironic that I would move to this epic town. But at the same time, at that time, we didn't have a park here. And so I think if we had a park here, it would have been an automatic no-brainer. I would have opened up a park camp and we would have done that. And I approached some of the brands back then about doing backcountry camps and kind of getting their pros involved. But yeah, it was just a step that I think to take the company in that direction was a big multi-year plan, and it just wasn't, my heart wasn't in it, which stinks. So then we transitioned out of that. Canada We're still running it, which is fantastic, and then moving it on to something completely different. It's like from Monty, if you ever watched Monty Python, it's like now for something completely different, which is, if anybody lives in Revelstoke and knows us, they know that Scott, my husband, and I ran a property management company, which is also a business that I don't wish like a mom and pop to run, or like on my worst enemy. Some people will be like, oh, I'm going to start property management company. I'm like, good luck.
Walk away.
Have at it, knock yourself out. Because it's really challenging. And again, it's you learn so much and you grow through the hard times and through the challenging stuff. But yeah, when you're in the trenches, it's difficult. So we started that. We bought it off a couple girls in town. We got 2 clients and some paperwork that we never used, and a website and their name. And then Scott and I would literally scoot on a scooter around town looking for rent signs. And then we'd knock on the door and be like, do you need somebody to help rent your property? We have tenants. We'll find you tenants. We'll rent your property for you. We'll manage it. We'll do such a great job. And we were this weird mom and pop team where we'd do everything together for the first couple of years, I think, just because we'd like to. And so we'd be like cleaning units, changing out dishwashers, like removing stuff that was left behind. Anyway, so that company grew, thankfully, beyond that, where I learned finally for the first time both how valuable a team is. I guess for the second time, how valuable a team is, but also how valuable it is to know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. I mean, that's a big one with running a small business. As it grows, if you want it to grow past that really small business into a larger business, then you have to start hiring people for your weaknesses and start giving up some of that control that you get so obsessed with when you're running your own company, and thinking I need to do everything and I'm going to do everything right and I'll do it best and nobody else can do it as good as I can, is just something that will completely trap you. So I would relate it to, putting a ball and chain around your foot, and it's like, great, then you'll never take a day off, you'll never feel comfortable, and you'll never really truly have people who can take over your business, because no business ultimately really should, especially one that has a lot of clients or is growing, should rely on you. Even if you just get sick or want a day off or want a vacation, then what happens to your clients? Where's the redundancy? Where is the succession planning? So we thankfully got it to a point where we had an awesome team, who to this day I'm so thankful for, because they worked their butts off for us and with us, and we really felt, I miss them so much. But and they were just fantastic, and we really, by the time our company transitioned, we had really nailed the people element, which is why I got into organizational psychology, and I was able to spend more time just working with them, managing them, hopefully mentoring them, but and giving them just kind of the support that they needed, as opposed to all of us being like me being as a business owner, my head down in the trenches and like, oh, don't bother me with that. It was more, at least I like to think back, hopefully for them, sometimes it was more of the support role, which is what I work with a lot of people on now, is
Yeah.
how do you support your team? How do you nurture your team? How do you put the right people in the right place? And how do you help them see their potential and help them find goals and relate those goals to the company anyway? So, and then we transition that to a private equity firm who's running it now. And so they're,
Okay.
that's been several years, and
Yeah.
they're crushing it. They really
Oh,
are.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are
Yeah.
you still in touch with your teammates, like the ex-teammates?
I am.
Yeah.
One lives down the road. Luckily, this is Revelstoke, so but
Yeah.
they're still in
Just like
town.
better.
And yeah, yeah, and everyone's doing their thing. We have kids. Some have kids, some don't. Everybody's
Yeah.
doing
Moving
different,
along.
but yeah, definitely still kept those relationships strong and hold them dear in my heart. And
Yeah.
yeah, so fantastic people, and that's why I ended up getting into the organizational psychology side
Mhm.
of things, is because when we were kind of thinking about transitioning and thought, okay, this isn't our forever career, and as you start to learn, hey, I should do what I'm kind of a mix between what I'm passionate about, what gives me energy, and both for Scott and I, it was these other endeavors that we
Yeah.
knew were our long-term career endeavors. For me, it was
Yeah.
organizational psychology. For Scott, it was M&A advisory, and we
Yeah.
knew like, these are our things.
Yeah.
And so property management company won't be our thing forever. And it's kind of hard when you find, if you're in a business and then you find the thing that you want to be in and that you feel like you're supposed to be in, it gets really hard to really think long term about staying in that place, because you're like, that's not my forever
Mhm.
career. You know,
Yeah.
and we found those relatively late in life.
Yeah.
And they, a lot of the things that we learned in the company led to where we were. So it was, for me, it was these two businesses that when I look at, they were both really heavy on developing teams and developing people and developing culture, a culture where people felt like they belonged and they were nurtured. And I
Yeah.
think that's also coming from being a coach for so long, like even being a snowboard coach and coaching people. And then I trained, like, coach people, but then also trained coaches. So it's kind of from almost all of my career, I've been working with people to help them grow. And then
Yeah.
it's a natural progression to say, okay, what is this? It's a different kind of job
Yeah.
in the workplace, because I also was really interested in business and how people run business and leadership. And I know the leadership struggle is a
Mhm.
really hard one and needs a
Mhm.
lot of, in my opinion, needs support and needs help. And we had gotten to the point where our business could run without us. And it was this beautiful thing. And that's what I wanted to give to people when I moved on.
Mhm.
Okay, how do I
Yeah.
help them get their businesses or get to the point, or at least learn the things that I learned that gave me freedom and gave me joy
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
company that for a period of time did not give me joy.
Yeah. So two things I want to say. You and Scott are just like creating your own jobs, which I love. You guys are just like, yeah, we're just creating this thing. We're doing it. Like, you guys are so good at that.
Yeah.
Another thing is like, how awesome is it to have a boss that like cares enough about like them as individuals to create an environment that is cohesive and productive? And like, what a lucky experience to be a part of, you know?
I hope so. Like, I know,
Yeah.
I know it's not, it wasn't easy. Like, that's the thing, is it's when you're
Yeah.
in it. I know for ourselves and for our team, it was hard because we were
Yeah.
dealing with problems. Like, that's why
Yeah.
property
Oh yeah.
management is challenging. You're dealing with appeasing two almost opposing sides.
Yeah.
So you're trying to work to make the best quality accommodation for the tenant and find the right tenant for a house. And then you're also trying to work with the owner on whatever it is, whatever their needs are. So you're really this weird in between of just trying to meet everybody's needs as best as you can. And those
Yeah.
aren't always, sometimes those are in conflict.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're in beautiful alignment, which we really tried to get good at, is finding the right people, as much as, which is really funny because I'm like, oh, right people in the right seat, but also it was like right people for the right house or for the right property.
Yeah.
So is this a match for what your needs are? Is this a match for your lifestyle? So it really is, we learned a lot about people. It was a people and it was a numbers business.
Right.
Really, if anybody thinks it's anything else, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're saying just like how many lessons, and you've already shared a few It sounds like there was a lot of like highs and lows, and a lot of lessons. Would you want to share with us like one that stands out specifically that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll tell you a low, because it's so poignant and just ingrained in my brain.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was just when we were, and I think a lot of businesses are going to go through a phase where if you can push through that growth phase, you can make it's like you can make it to the other side. And then you're going to have to push through more growth phases. But sometimes some of those first ones are hard. But anyway, so we were going through, we're just charging forward as we did. But I had worked myself, and this is back to, okay, this is definitely a lesson that people can learn from me. And I do try and share this story when I see somebody going down this path, because it was so painful for me and was not an easy fix. So I was the first one of the people who was a business owner who ended up doing our bookkeeping and our accounting, and completely untrained, but thought, like, oh, how hard can it be? We'll start out, I'll do our bookkeeping. And then before I knew it, after years also, I had worked myself into kind of this role that was really hard to hand off and was really hard to get out of. And basically it was, and I also didn't want to be a bookkeeper at
Yeah.
all. I didn't have those skills. I shouldn't have been in that job in that role in the first place. I was also doing all these other roles, as you do. So you're also not doing a service to that role, which, by the way, was extremely important, especially in that company. So
Yeah.
it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to do our cleaning
Yes.
and I'm going to drop the ball on that. It's like, no, I'm going to do one of the most important jobs in this company.
That happen every year and then compound on top of that.
And then it compounds. That's exactly it. And so what happened was I worked myself into this accounting role that I couldn't get out of. I couldn't train anybody out of to save my life. And because I also didn't know what I was doing. And
Yeah.
so like picture just like, spreadsheets and things that made sense to me, but nobody else. And I'd go through them with our accountant, and she's like, and she had to figure out how my brain worked. And them. She's like, okay, this makes sense if I know how your brain works. But the problem is you don't have an accounting brain because you don't have accounting training. And this isn't, like entry level. This isn't year 1 accounting. This is year 3, year 4 graduate level accounting that it was involved in a property management company.
I need some good news here.
Yeah. And so basically what ended up happening was when you go through your property management licensing in British Columbia, you're audited, and they require you to have perfect financials for multiple years before they don't audit you. And so naturally our auditor came in and like,
Audited regardless.
pardon?
You're audited regardless.
Audited no matter what. Yeah.
Oh,
So it
yeah,
happened
okay.
because they're kind of like, okay, well, you're a new licensee. And the property management companies fall under the same guidelines as a real estate brokerage.
Oh, interesting.
But property management, bookkeeping and accounting is it's similar,
Yeah.
except for it has thousands more transactions that happen on a monthly basis. So if you imagine a real estate brokerage, and we're all under the same guidelines and the same standards of what we have to do because we're dealing with trust accounts. So they're like, we don't want you, this is other people's money. This is tenant security deposits. This is owner's rent, and it doesn't belong to you. So you need to account for every cent. And it needs to look this way as well. So it also was like, I'm like, well, here it all is. They're like, no. It needs to look the way that we want it to look. And you also need all this other stuff. So it was really, if anybody's ever been through an audit, it's just terrible because it just stinks. It stinks having everything you're doing completely torn apart and told that it's like, this
You're
sucks.
like, you're not right.
Yeah, this isn't good. This isn't good enough. This isn't right. Or this is, yeah, anyways. And that happened to me for years. So picture an audit and then picture that going on for kind of just like a big block of time, like 3 to 5 years. I just felt like I was in this had this ongoing audit space, and they would physically come in every year. And anyway, so yeah, I hated it. Like I absolutely hated it. I hated my life. I hated it. I hate our business. Yeah, I just, yeah, it was, I don't think I've ever been depressed, but it's probably the closest. Like I just remember, I was just driving
You're a
back.
heavy weight. Yeah.
Pardon?
under a heavy weighted blanket of pressure, and like there's no easing up in sight.
None. And then so that was the other crappy thing, is that the numbers never stopped. Like it just never stopped, because every day there'd be more transactions. So you're kind of doing this anyway, trying to reconcile, but it just never ended. So yeah, I just didn't know. It was hard because when you don't know, and I think this is like speaking mildly from a place of very mild understanding, is I think when you don't know how to get out of a situation, that's when sometimes depression can start to kick in, and like really crappy, dangerous mindset and thoughts can start to creep in, because you're like, I don't know how this ends. And the ways that I can think of that it ends are all terrible. Like for me, shutting down my business in failure, or it's how many years of this, I don't know, and so you just don't, you're in the fog. But yeah, it really sucked. And I remember, just driving back. I was driving back from Banff for Calgary, and I just wanted to drive the car off the road. I was like, if anybody's ever had that weird urge or feeling, can this just be over? And I would go home at night and I would cry. I would just go home and cry, because it was like, I would have, not every day, but I'd have just these days where it's like just, so it just felt like a big block of time. And it probably wasn't as long but now it just seems like this, when, sometimes when you look back on years, so it's like, okay, if I look back on that chunk of my life, it feels like two years of it was just black, of like awfulness. And it's, again, like I was still fine, right? Like I was okay. I'd go to work, I'd support our team, and I was still like happy, but not always, or it'd be underneath, because you can't show that. And it just was, I don't know, I just don't wish that upon anybody. It sucked. It really sucked. And then luckily we got out. Like I found a person who wanted to do that role. And then I worked with 2 CPAs on a consistent basis for years to correct and adjust and clean everything up. And so it took us a while. It took us years to be at the standard that we needed to be at, and have just these really clean, beautiful financials, which is just ridiculous. But it happens. Like it's really easy to get away from you, to especially when it's somebody else's standard, right? So it's not something that, it's not the CRA. It's like, this is the real estate council standard, and it has to look exactly like they want it to look and be exactly how they want it to be. And I took accounting courses, so I educated myself, and then worked for a couple of years to train up somebody who took that job over, and then that was great. And then I remember like walking away from it. And I could still drop in and help. Like I'd help count rent money or do a deposit, but I was not in the trenches. And somebody was there doing the job who actually wanted, it was interesting to them. And it was cleaned up, so it wasn't terrible. But anyway.
And looking back at that, was there anything that you see now that was almost preserving your sanity and your ability to move forward, if that makes sense? Like, was there anything that you see now that you were doing just because you like either knew or didn't know that you needed to do it, that was like moving the needle forward?
Like I just kept going. So it's really dry work. So it's reconciling bank accounts. So it's basically, you're just taking money and matching it. You're like, this is what it is, this is where it belongs, and making everything add up and go down to zero at the end of the day. And I found eventually I learned to love it. It's like,
you're like, I know what
Stockholm syndrome, where you end up empathizing with your
my routine of my tea and my looking at numbers, and I'm going to be sitting here for 5 hours or maybe probably longer.
So and that's kind of a really good way to frame it, is I would start going into it without like just with a routine. And I would also often do it at night, because it's quiet work as well. You can't really be distracted. But I remember I'd be looking outside and see friends or people that I know, they're going out to dinner, and I'm just like reconciling, but I'd have the music on that I wanted. I have my drink, like my tea, sometimes I have a glass of wine, but of course, but I made it at least I made it enjoyable. And then as I learned, of course, it became easier. It's like, oh, this is how I do it. Now I understand.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. and then it became less painful. And then that's when like you're on out, right? Like you're like, okay, here's light. There's light here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. But it's probably
And
even more brief period of time. It's funny how these like
yeah,
dark patches, it's like they probably extend, but realistically, yeah, maybe it was a year. I don't know.
right, right.
But anyway, that just, yeah, it just
It's
sticks
a
with
lot.
me.
It's heavy.
But
Um,
hopefully I don't know if anybody's been through that. How do I get out of this?
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. And the profession that you're in now, tell me more about that. Like, what is your like day to day with that looking like? And what is like your goal and your, yeah, just like what you're drawn to?
Yeah. So my favorite thing to do is to do personality assessments with teams.
Okay.
Is to dive in because it's interesting because business owners will come to me and basically it's generally the same thing, and I have people problems, I have turnover problems, I have performance problems, but it's like I have human problems with the humans that work for me, and I don't understand what to do or how to fix it, and now I'm at my wit's end and just tired of it. So that's generally how it comes to me. And then what I do, which is so fun for me, is then I just go and do like investigation. So I talk to them and I just piece the whole puzzle together. And as an outsider, I take all the pieces, all the information, then I deliver it back to the owner. I'm like, oh, here we go. I understand exactly what your problem is. So I talk to the owner, get their take,
Wow.
and then I talk to all the members of the team. We have generally some pretty good candid conversations, and then I even ask them stuff that's tell me about your role and what you do here, and then I put that against, okay, when I ask the business owner, tell me their role and tell me what they do here. And then how often do you want to guess that is not the same answer? And
100% of the time.
yeah, most of the time they're like, oh, Bill does this. I'm like, Bill thinks he does this. So communication problem. And then so I talk to the staff and they'll generally tell me all the issues and all the stuff that's going on within the company and everything that sucks and everything that they love. And then I consolidate that. So there's no, you know,
Dark spots.
individuals that stand out. And I basically give them like a culture SWOT assessment, like the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then so I go back to the leader. I'm like, I talk to everybody. I talk to you. It's very easy because you see themes draw out pretty
Yes.
instantly, like one or two themes. Like here it is, here it is. Lo and behold, it's often them and something they've created or that they're doing, or somebody's in the wrong role, or there hasn't been. I have 3 C's of leadership from a study that I did, interviewing top successful businesses, and the 3 C's of leadership are culture, caring, and clarity. And I talk on that often. So that's okay if you want to retain staff, the people who have people that stick around long term and enjoy their jobs, and businesses that in turn the business grows and is nurtured through their people. You have to culture, they have to be a fit for the company, and you need to provide clarity, role clarity. So if there's miscommunication on who's doing what, understanding each other, and then caring. You need to care about your people, or at least, and this is what I tell people who don't care, like you at least have to pretend that you care and give the illusion
Just
that you care.
play the game, sir.
Play the game. You're a leader. There's a responsibility. There's a sense of duty that comes along with that. And then from there, I'm like, here's your information, here's your problem, and then we work together to solve those in a variety of ways.
What a cool profession. Like, I love that you're like, no, we just break it down and this is how we like, it's just like, what a cool thing.
Yeah. And then it's a journey and sometimes it's a journey for them. Sometimes it's a journey they're not ready to go on.
Yeah. How typically long is that, what you've just described? Like, how long does that take? Is it,
The initial kind of that initial fact finding and information, I give myself a month, but it depends on the size of the company, but generally about a month. I talk to everybody, have conversations, kind of consolidate everything, and then there's several conversations that are back and forth happening with the leadership as well, and then I run like a personality test. And so I can kind of give them hey, this is how your company functions. And it's really interesting because maybe most of the people might operate a certain way, and then that's driving the organization, and that can sometimes be in conflict with the way that the business owner runs. But again, it all really depends on the size of the company, because then it's just a time game.
Makes sense.
And then from there, that can be anywhere from 3 months to years. Like I've had people for multiple years, and that's where, like, if you're coach working with people, it's generally you're into a long-term engagement because change takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily, there's some problems that can be solved very quickly.
Right.
But a lot of real change takes a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
But
fascinating.
yeah, the goal is after several months, it's like, hey, I'll give you all the tools you need to be successful. And I should be completely redundant. Like I can't stick around where I've had offers to stick around. It's like, hey, can you just do this for us and just care? Can you just care on my behalf? I'm like, no, I can't just care on your behalf. And I find that's often because it's the lowest hanging fruit for them. They're like, they talk to you, they like you just stick around and they'll tell you stuff and then you tell me. So they're like, that's leadership. Do you want me to run your company and you go away and you pay me what you would make? Like, no, that's the job. So like, you want to outsource your leadership, and if I say that, people they're like so embarrassed. Like, no, I gotta, like,
you're like, so what you're saying is, yeah.
So ideally, after several months, it's like, here's everything you need.
Yeah.
But and here's the people, and you understand them. We've done some team building things together. We understand each other. But if you don't practice these things, then But I've done stuff that's like internal, external, and it can be a long time. But
good for you, man. What a cool thing.
Yeah, I really like it. So that was a big reason why I needed to leave our last company. Like we had such a great team, and I just felt bad for leaving them. And they've since moved on, the team that we had then, because also it's like nobody needs to stay in the job forever. That isn't for them either. But same with a business owner, right? And when I knew, I was like, this is my thing. And I'd started doing my master's program when we were starting to think about selling the company as well. And it's like, every year that I'm delaying doing this now as a career, I'm now delaying my career, my long-term career, and that's, once we were there, it's that pull force became stronger.
And what a need for your profession, just like with today's climate, what we've just all been through, like the level of burnout and like there's so many layers that are happening right now. And I just feel like everywhere you turn, there's just like a lack of employees or lack of, it's just like, people are just tired. They're tired. And so I feel like there's just going to be more and more need for your profession.
Growing, admittedly, I felt safe going into this field because it was one of the fastest growing psychology professions too. It was and becoming a little bit more known. To a certain degree, like Adam Grant, he's like now kind of organizational psychologist, but he's becoming a thought leader. And I'm like, great, he's like one of us out there. And he's brilliant. It's nice. It's good because I think we really need it. And part of the thing was, for me, it was just making workplaces, regardless of what the job is, enjoyable for people. And my heart really goes out to the staff. It's like, okay, how do I make this? And I've talked to people sometimes in those introductory conversations, and they hate their life. And they don't feel like they can leave. I'm like, as a business owner, I've been there, but you're an employee, you can leave, but at the same time, not necessarily. It's not as easy as that. Not when you have a family to support. So how do we spend so much of our time at work? How do we make that work bring us joy and rewarding if it's not necessarily like that? And I would like to think that most roles can achieve that. The right workplace, like the right almost ingredient, the right recipe, but it's all of it. And this is the John C. Maxwell's leadership guru, who I am obsessed with. But he says the sun rises and sets on the leader, and it really does. So it's hard to change anybody's business from the middle. It almost has to be changed from the top, unless you're a massive company and that middle is very powerful, like a huge department. Like if we're helping Amazon, you don't necessarily need to deal
You
with
do.
Jeff Bezos. Yeah,
Mhm.
you could. There might be some pretty significant departments in there where there's a lot of autonomy and a lot of power held in a manager's hands,
Mhm.
because then you get into subcultures. But now I'm getting, yeah.
Yeah, so good. It's so fascinating. And just like, yeah, everybody, I just wish it was built into all jobs, like what a world we'd live in if there was job satisfaction and support and like communication. Oh, like, isn't that a
Imagine?
thing?
Yeah.
Good.
Role clarity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People who
Yeah.
care about you.
Yeah.
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 So
Thanks for
it's pretty good.
sharing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Thanks, Amy. This
Yeah.
was
It's good.
this is good. Like,
If
I
we
don't want
might.
to toot our own horn, but I think we're doing good here.
So good. Hope you guys have been tuning in still.
Yeah. They're like, we tuned out. Like,
You're like rambling.
yeah, when Eve was talking about
Um,
accounting, which she lost us. They're like, I don't know. I don't need the story. No, thanks. Um, or they're like,
Well,
wow, you guys are a mess. My life is fine.
yeah, totally.
I don't deal with any of those.
We're there for that support too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Imperative. Imperative.
I do feel like
Um,
it's timely because I feel like we're in the this is fine meme, like maybe we're coming out of it because it's pandemic times, but it's
yeah.
coming out. But even just, yeah, thinking about a lot of people, I feel like it's that resonates so often. The one I'm talking about where he's like in the middle of it's a dog in the middle of a burning building, and it's like he says, "This is fine." No,
Yeah.
nothing is fine. Yeah.
Yeah. No. A lot of change happening in the world. A lot of change.
Yeah. Okay. So shall
Well,
we do average moments? Wrap it up.
while we're here. Yeah. Well, I would say the most average thing about me is what we're talking about. Is that what? um, is that yeah, I'm afraid of the dark.
That's, and we were talking about this before,
Yeah.
and I love it because I'm afraid of the dark. And this is a good gimme because I don't know. This is a good average moment because I don't know what mine would be aside from like I like drink coffee and stuff like that. And watch Netflix
Yeah.
for hours on end sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, also afraid of the dark, very much into adulthood, which is maybe I'll lose some.
Is it crippling for you? Like, tell me more about it. I want to know more about you. Like, see how people are afraid of the dark is. Like, on what spectrum of being afraid of the dark?
Yeah. Okay.
Like, are you afraid of dark water?
If I'm
Yeah.
downstairs by myself
Yes.
and it's dark and I go to go upstairs, I will
Yes.
sprint upstairs.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same. Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm home alone, doors are locked. Yeah, I'll just leave it there.
Yeah,
You're
and
gonna think
that's
I'm weird.
why.
But yeah, it's like I get scared of ghosts and people trying to murder me. And I also watch a lot of murder like crime dramas, which doesn't help. And I'm afraid of ghosts. So that's that.
Where did that all stem from for you?
Yeah, I grew up in an old farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, like no neighbors, fields for days.
Yeah.
125-year-old farmhouse. So I'm pretty sure I was haunted as like a
Like
baby.
friendly or like not friendly ghosts, would you say?
I don't think anything terrorizing.
Okay, but terrorizing enough to get you to where you are now.
Yeah. So just growing up in an old, creaky, scary farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, like picture the like the willow tapping at the tree outside.
Oh boy.
Like outside your window. Yeah. And like just nothing. It's funny because I'm not a city person,
right?
But the nothingness now gives me peace when I'm not alone, but just really scared me at nighttime. So it's like me going out after dark. No, not happening.
So like put your chickens in the coop, would that be a no-go for you, or are you good with that?
I can do it now, but now I just get scared of bears. Like I'm out there and it's not gonna be a ghost, it'll be a bear that's gonna get me. Because I feel like there's ghosts around here, but I definitely felt like there were growing up like I'm being I'm sure haunted. We go and stay in the city in Toronto And it would just give me such comfort because there'd be lights everywhere, always. So there's always street lights on. It's like, oh, it's like permanent night light. This is the best. And there's
Like,
sounds,
this is my heaven.
humans. This is awesome. And I always just felt so safe there, which is like
Yeah.
the sounds are like police cars and ambulances or people honking their horn, like angry at one another. I was like,
Yeah,
this
so
is good.
cozy.
Ghosts
So
can't get in here.
yeah.
What
man.
about you? Where's your fear of the how
Oh,
deep
yeah.
does the fear of the dark go?
So also a couple more spectrums I want to talk about is like being afraid of dark water. So I'm afraid of dark water as well, but it both comes from my brother because I had a cabin on Shuswap Lake growing up, and we'd walk through the forest to our buddy's place, and he would be throwing sticks like into the forest and be like, Amy, what was that?
That's terrifying. Yeah.
And I'm like, Kyle. And then he would, when we'd be swimming, he would like dive down and then he would come back up and like grab my feet. And so like
You were terrorized.
terrorized. And then also, yeah, running up the stairs in the dark from the basement. Like it's like all of his terrorizing. And so I was lucky enough to be able to build a house, and I'm like, Adam, I don't want a basement. He's like, we don't have to build one. I'm like, sweet. So I'm like,
terrifying.
I live in a house that I'm not afraid of, and it's like the coolest thing.
I think that's the thing. I'm not scared of my house, which is nice.
Okay, that is nice.
Yeah.
But like even my rental, the top of the stairs, I would run past the top of the stairs.
Like, something's gonna like get you.
Oh my gosh. So yeah.
Okay, so if when we post this, I would love for people to share their afraid of the dark stories or the other things that we talked about.
Yeah.
A little bit more serious, but if you have a fear of the dark or ghosts or murderers or anything at all,
any other fear, let's hear it. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, why don't we cut it there?
Yeah.
Amy,
thank you so much, Eve. Thank
you. This is good.
This is good.
This is a really good intro for us.
And thanks so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you to anybody who's listening, and yeah, stay tuned for the next one.
Again, find us on Instagram, Normalizing Average, and normalizingaverage.com, and then you can find us on the Apple Podcast app.
Coming soon.
Yeah,
we're doing it. Okay.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Thanks, Amy.